I'm Joe Peroni from the Rise Above Project, and today I want to do a continuation off of last week's show, which was about learned helplessness and learned control. But today I want to take it from a philosophical perspective on how to rise above learned helplessness. So let's get right into it. Number one, I think we need to give up the need for control, and I think we need to give up the need for certainty. So the question is why? Well, it's because most of life, as far as I can see, is beyond our control. And as Jim Morrison said a long time ago, the future is always uncertain. So this is just a reality. So if you want to keep fighting against it, yeah, you're going to be helpless and you're not going to feel so good. So sometimes it's good just to kind of go with the flow. The second part of that, I think the question becomes, what is under our control? And what is your responsibility when you're facing a helpless situation or something that you are kind of out of control? And I just want to start with this, is that you need to be reminded right up front, is that the power to choose is always yours and it's always under your control. So that part you have. So I was going through a list in my own head during the week of things that are out of my control. And I've been really annoyed most of my life about most of these. And the reality is that I just have to manage it because I cannot change this. So number one, since I've had any level of consciousness that I remember, since I was about 5 years old, I've been extremely afraid to die. It's a thought that I still have panic attacks to this day. Not every day, not every week, not even every month, but I certainly do. And it's just a thought that I can't control it, and I want to. So that's number one on the list. You cannot control dying. But what can you control? Well, you can control not killing yourself. And as easy and as stupid as that might sound, that's a big deal, and I'll tell you why. In the year 2018, there's been over 48,000 suicides in the United States alone. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. So it's not something that needs to be brushed away. The power, the strength, and the courage to keep going when you don't feel right, when you're in pain. Because most people, or I don't know of anybody who actually wants to die, they just want their pain to stop. So the courage to keep going is important, and you can control not killing yourself. That's number one. Number two, another one I have great difficulty with, growing old. What control do I have over growing old? Well, for most of my life, I've been on a very strict exercise program, cardio, weight training, obviously. I still box. I still have cuts on my fingers today, as you can see. These are things I do on an everyday basis, probably 7 days a week. I've been following a very diligent nutritional program for a very long time, and I do pay attention to my sleep patterns. I do try to get a lot of sleep, so I do try to control that. But does that control me from getting old? As a matter of fact, there's a little paradox here, because what it does is it increases my chances of growing old. So I'm actually growing old more. So now I get to watch myself grow old. Now you can't see this because I've got one of my posters on the wall. One of my people that I looked up to is James Dean. Now he died at a very young age, but one of the things that really is a positive of dying young, at least for him, is that he got to die a good-looking man. He never got to see himself feel bad from arthritis, watch his hair go gray, watch all the joints in his body have difficulty, have joint replacements. He never had to go through any of that. So in a paradoxical way, the more you take care of yourself, the more you're going to grow old. The best we can do is to grow old gracefully, I would say. What else can't I control? Well, I can't control other people's thoughts, their actions, and their behaviors. I can't control their feelings. It's even if you want to try to be the best person you can possibly be on this planet, you are totally responsible for who you are as a person, the messages you give out, and the aura that's around you. But you are not responsible at all for somebody else's reaction or response to you. And so in the end, you don't control anything. You only control yourself, and that's fine. But if your self-esteem is built on how you're affecting the world, you're not going to do very well. Number 4, you can't make somebody love you. You can't even make them like you. In therapy, I look at this a lot with people. A lot of people look for familiarity. They're not necessarily looking for people that are good for them or that are going to be a person that's a good lifelong partner. They look for people that they feel some type of familiarity to. Or even if you were to love somebody and do everything that it takes to be a great person for somebody, there's a high likelihood that they can't accept the love that's given to them. And that's the way actually most people are. So again, you can take control of who you are as a person, but again, how it's received, totally out of your hands. Number 5, let's say you're not in control of the family or the environment that you were born into. Now that seems self-evident, it's so obvious, right? We could just say it, we can feel it, we know it. But we actually don't, because there's so many people out there that blame all their problems today and tomorrow and whatever's going to happen in the future on a family or environment that they were born into. They don't know how to separate themselves from that. And that's a big deal in terms of, do you feel helpless in your life or do you have some type of control? And that's something that we have to look at. You can't control where you came from, but again, you are very responsible for where you are and where you end up and where you go. And another interesting one is that you can't please everybody, which is something that I've learned. Now, let me make this one a little bit more personal too. So, I have a lot of respect and appreciation for each and every one of my subscribers. Now, the interesting part here is I have so few subscribers. I actually know most of them by name, which is really interesting. So I have got a ton of education, a ton of experience, and I put a lot of time and effort into trying to do really good shows to help people. And I have about 250, 260 subscribers, let's say. Now, I know other people out there that have no education, really no experience, and they've had a channel for like 4 years and they say the same thing every single week for 4 years with no professional backing of what they say, and they might have 300,000-400,000 subscribers. I have clients that are 10 years old that they'll do a YouTube show of them having they'll drink water compared to their friend and see who could drink the glass of water faster. And they've got like 5, 10, 15,000 subscribers. And here I sit with 250. There's a part of this thing, it's just so funny. So I can't worry about those types of things. And I'm sure a lot of people out there too, you feel like you're working really hard, you're doing the right things, you're fighting the good fight. And there are other people that seem to be more popular, more successful, they make more money. These things you can't worry about them. What you have to do is worry about being the best person you can be. Something else I can't control, especially in Las Vegas, traffic is another thing. But here's how you can control it a little bit. I'd leave early. I'm very rarely late wherever I go. It doesn't matter how much traffic there is. I love when people say this, I'm late. Why are you late? Because of traffic. Well, it's something you didn't know? Like, Las Vegas has a lot of traffic. You know how long it's going to take, so you make time. So that's how you can control that. Another thing I can't control that bothers me to no end is certain aspects of the body. Now, take it from somebody who's been a bodybuilder their whole life. What can I control? Well, my height, that's one. Number 2, if you want to be the top and the best at something, and I'm talking about bodybuilding, football, whatever, boxing, whatever it might be. If you want to be the top of the top in something, they work very hard. Don't get me wrong. They work extremely hard. But the people who are at the very pinnacle, They're born that way. There's a big genetic component to that. I know a lot of average Joes and type of people. I know your average men, your average women at gyms, and I can tell you there's a lot of those people that work just as hard or harder than professional bodybuilders that I know. And what's the difference? What's the major difference between that? It's genetics. Genetics can carry people a lot further. And so that's just a reality of life. It's not just about working hard. I mean, you can be a great basketball player. If you're 5'6", you're probably gonna have a little bit more difficulty against somebody else who's 6'10". That's just the way the world works. But again, certain things you cannot control. But again, the power to choose is always under your control. So one of my favorite writers of all time is Albert Camus. He was a French existentialist. And a long time ago, he wrote this. He said, I wake up in the morning and I have a choice. And I don't know if I should get myself a cup of coffee or should I kill myself. Now, it sounds morbid, but what he's doing here, he's telling you that the power to choose your life every day is the most important part, and you have control over that. And as I look over my life of all the people that I've known, whether just my own personal life, whether it's through training, whether it's through therapy, I can tell you there are many people out there with physical disabilities, mental challenges, socioeconomic realities, people that have had extreme losses. I'm talking like they lost their business. They may have lost a child. They may have lost a parent. They may be somebody like me who at least once a week I wake up in the middle of the night knowing that I'll never be able to speak to my parents again. You know, we've all had losses. If you live long enough, you're going to experience all of them, including the loss of yourself. This is reality. But there is an honor in moving forward and making the best of bad situations. And for a lot of people out there, the very act of fighting another day is the ultimate act of courage and rebellion. And it's an act of courage and rebellion against an apathetic, uncaring world. And in order to fight back against this, no matter what the end result is, does give us meaning and purpose. And you are not helpless to make that decision. That is under your control. So I'd like to talk about Sisyphus. He's a character from Greek mythology, and I think it has made a difference in my life. As a matter of fact, in one of my business cards, I have a picture of Sisyphus on it. And it speaks about the reality of life, the way at least I see it. So Sisyphus also, like myself, hated the idea of dying. And he was able to cheat death twice. And because of this, Zeus, who was the god in Greek mythology, he said, okay, if you don't want to die, I'm going to give you something worse than death. And what it's going to be is to have an eternity of frustration and anger and of working hard and never getting anywhere, never accomplishing anything, being totally helpless and no control over your future. And you'll never finish a thing no matter how hard you work, and you're going to do this alone, you will get no accolades. And so this, Zeus thought, was torture for Sisyphus. Well, the good part of this is, and of why he's an inspiration, is because Sisyphus basically gave 2 middle fingers back to Zeus and was like, listen, I can handle working hard. That's what I want to do because I can do it. And the thought of doing this sets me above all others. The thought to work hard just to be able to get to a goal or to get accolades from other people actually cheapens it. So his job, every day or every minute of his life, Sisyphus was to push a boulder way bigger than him and push it way up this mountain. And when it got to the top of the mountain, the boulder would roll back down the other side, thus making him start all over again, and he'd have to walk back down the mountain and then go back up and lift the boulder. One analogy for this is the sunrise and sunset every day, how it's unchanging. The other analogy is, I think, at least for me, is how many people out there work a 9-to-5 job and expect to do this for 50 years straight until you're looking for retirement. And most people die just a couple of years after your retirement. Doesn't this seem kind of meaningless? Doesn't it seem like where's the meaning and purpose in life to do this? But here's the thing, maybe the meaning and purpose is in facing tough situations and doing them anyway, right? I know there's a lot of people out there, according to the last stats I looked at, 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and they're gonna go through their whole life working and working hard and struggling and getting older as they do it, so it's even harder. And in the end, they may not have much to show for it, but they did have a life of trying hard. And sometimes that has to be enough. Sometimes that will make somebody happy. So I want to read you the last part of the myth of Sisyphus, which was written by Albert Camus. And if I have my partner over here hand me my paperwork that seems to fly on the floor. So I'm going to read this last bit part because I want to make sure it's perfect. So again, Albert Camus' words here, not mine. I leave Sisyphus at the foot of the mountain. One always finds one's burden again. Sisyphus teaches the higher fidelity that negates the gods and raises rocks. He too concludes that all is well. This universe, henceforth, without a master, seems to him neither sterile nor futile. Each atom of that stone, each mineral flake of that night-filled mountain, in itself forms a world. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Now, because that's basically the message of the whole show today, I just want to read those last two lines again because it gets a little wordy, but those last two words for every working person, every person facing difficulty and adversity and tragedies that still has the courage, again, to fight. I like these words. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus as happy. And I want to finish with my own words here, because unlike a lot of these other podcasts with like 500,000 subscribers that just read out of the DSM, I like to use my own brain. So we're going to do that. If you tie your self-esteem and happiness to your level of effort, you will always have a level of control that no one can take from you. So my name is Joe Peroni. I hope you enjoyed today's show. This is the Rise Above project. If you would like, you can subscribe, maybe bring me up to like 261 subscribers so I could be somewhat close to 500,000 that some of these people have. And in order to do that, hopefully you can tell a friend, because I don't like to brag about myself. Maybe that's my own issue I need to look at. But anyway, thank you, and I will speak to you again soon.